Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Yagesh Bobre and welcome to Developer Zone. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded a video because I was busy with my exams, but now that they are over, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on my channel, a lot more on creating content. So you'll be seeing me a lot more often, right? So to make sure you're on top of things, you get updates often, just click on the notification icon down below. All right. I think that's enough of introduction. Today we are going to be implementing an authentication on a website, right? We are going to be learning how do you authenticate with LinkedIn. We are going to be using LinkedIn as an example on a site, right? You remember seeing those buttons on sites you visit, like sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with GitHub, etc. We'll be using this, that it's called authentication, right? So we'll be using that same and creating a sign in with LinkedIn, but we'll be using passport library for that. So I think that's enough for all the intro stuff, and let's get down to coding. All right, so guys, this site right here is the site for the library that we are going to be using for authentication. So the name is passport, right? The library's name is passport, and it basically works using small packages known as strategies, and each of these strategies is directly and explicitly for a specific provider, right? For example, here you see passport Facebook, right? So this is for Facebook provider. Then we have Google, we have just local, like if you directly want to use email and password, right? So Google, and then we have Azure, GitHub, Microsoft, GitLab. So we have 538 such strategies. That's why this is one of the best libraries that you can use with Node.js for authentication purposes. For us in this video, we'll be talking about LinkedIn in particular. All right, when we click and go to this, you'll see that it's written in a pretty simple language. Yeah, it might take you some time to understand this code, but I'm here for you, and I'll make you guys go through this step by step and make you guys understand what exactly is this strategy following, right? So strategy or a package, a passport package. Yeah, this passport LinkedIn Auth 2 is a package, right? And basically what it does is we import a strategy class and we instantiate this class. We create a new LinkedIn strategy, and what it does is in LinkedIn in particular, we need some parameters: this client ID, client secret, a callback URL, so that after LinkedIn authenticates the user, it needs a URL to get back to, right? To send that information back. So this is that URL. And then we have scope is basically the amount of information that you can get back from LinkedIn. So we are providing the our email address scope. This basically means that you also want the email address of that user, right? Our light profile provides you with the name and the photo, right? And a location in, that just gives you the country. So here then we have a function in this strategy class. We have a function that basically gives us access token. The LinkedIn sends this access token first. We also have the option to refresh that token, right? Because after, I think the expiration time default is 2 months. After that it expires, so you need to refresh that token as well. So these are some parameters that LinkedIn gives us back. After that we have the user profile. This is the information that we'll be using, right? And done. This is the callback functions, the callback function that you need to do after all this is done, right? So what exactly do we need? So here all we are doing is process.next. It basically just executes everything under it after the end, before the end of the loop, right? So here we are just doing a callback function, and we are just passing the profile, the user profile that we get to the next request, right? And then here we saw that we have auth LinkedIn / callback, that URL, right? So we need to do something, right? So now that we have our user profile, now we need to get it back, right? So first what we'll do is we'll authenticate whether that login was success or a failure. So we have a route for specifically for that. If you have used Node.js before, you definitely know what routes are, right? So we have a auth LinkedIn callback route, right? So this is the route which it redirects back to. And then we use authenticate method. We provided the LinkedIn strategy. We specifically mentioned that this is a LinkedIn strategy, and use that to authenticate with passport, right? And if there is a success, if the user login is successful, then redirect to this. If it was failure, then redirect to /login. That's what we are doing in this. Now let's come back to this, right? What exactly is this route, right? We already have done like success, failure, and we already have the redirect URL, redirect URL as well. So what exactly is this specific route? So in front end you'll have a button, right? Like all these two routes are after cover everything that happens after you log in with LinkedIn, right? But before, you need an initiation step, right? When you click on that button, it should redirect you to the LinkedIn sign-in page, right? So that this is the function that does that. This is the route that makes that happen, right? So in front end on the button that you have, like sign in with LinkedIn, that button will apply it, and that will send a request or will redirect our user to this route. And what it will do is it will say that password.authenticate. We want to use the LinkedIn authentication. So what it will do is it will directly this request will redirect to LinkedIn for authentication. So it will basically send the user to a LinkedIn sign up page. So this is that first initiation step. After this, this strategy will take place. You'll get the information, and then this will happen. The authentication. If it's success, we'll get it on this. If it's failure, we'll get it on slash login. So that's basically how the passport strategy works, right? And I'm only explaining for LinkedIn because there is not a lot of content that I found helpful around LinkedIn. But otherwise, you have a lot of stuff on Google, Facebook, because they are used much more than this, right? But I feel like LinkedIn is starting to get more attention. So I thought this might be a good chance to get you guys familiar with Passport Library and LinkedIn in particular. Okay. So that's enough of introduction. And now let's dive right into the coding part. Before that, though, I want to mention this article that I'll be using as a reference. This was written by Purshad Shadel, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, but yeah, it's a great article and it has a step-by-step guide right from the very start of creating the app, the creator page, and getting those credentials, the creator ID and the login. So you can follow this link, this blog post as well. It's a very good blog post covering everything that you need for LinkedIn authentication with Passport, right? Give it a visit, give it a read if you want, guys, and maybe just clap for him as well. Give it a clap. Follow the guy. You can do whatever you want with that. It was a very helpful resource. So a big shout out to Pushad Shadel. And now let's get right down to coding, right? So guys, this is a new LinkedIn folder that I've created, and we'll start our Express app right here from the scratch, right? So first, if you don't know how to initialize this or you haven't worked with Node.js projects before, watch my another video. I'll link that in the description. But for now, let's just get on with it and install the dependencies. We need Express. We also need cores. Actually, I'll just install as and when required. So first, let's install Express and add our index.js file. This will be the file where we initialize our app, right? So right. So we have a required app. Let's initialize our app. Right. Now that we have our app, let's listen at a port, comma. Let's just log out. Listening at port. That should be good enough. Let's define our variable as if we have a port variable, then do this. Otherwise, we'll just write 5,000, right? So we'll listen at 5,000, define our app at that. And if we run this file right now, we can run this simply by saying node index.js. All right, I'm already running a project of that. So we'll change the port number to this. We'll run it again. Index.js. And so, yeah, we get listening at 8,000. So this app is working perfectly fine. So now that we have our Express app, let's get started working on LinkedIn, right? Before that, what we'll do is you get, if we get request on this, we are going to show request from a response and res.send. Here I'll tell you what we'll send, but before that, instead of directly pasting all the code here, which we can do for a small application, but I won't do that. I'll give you a proper structure. For example, here we'll write auth, right? And in this, we'll create a new passport linkedin.js auth, right? Here we'll write the required code for the passport strategy. Other than that, we'll also create a new folder right here. We'll write routes, and in that create a new file, and we'll write, I guess LinkedIn is fine, linkedin.js, right? So let's just import Express first. For importing Express, what we want to do is right. We'll also export that so that we don't forget in the end. Sports equals to router, right? So we have a router ready. Now let's set up our passport strategy, right? Before that, what we want to do is if you want to install the passport library, right? So I passport. This is the first thing. Other thing is this is the passport page that I showed you before, and here you will find this command right here, npm install passport LinkedIn auth. So for LinkedIn specifically, you'll have this, right? So install that as well, right? Now let's see what are the steps that they have given on their site. We'll directly follow the documentation, so you know when you're using a new technology, how do you use that from the documentation straight away, right? So first things first, require the strategy. So we'll directly use this strategy. Since we're using LinkedIn, we'll directly copy this whole code. I'll explain it to you in a bit, right? So this is the LinkedIn strategy, and we have already installed this library, so there should be no error. Then what we do is create a new instance of this strategy and pass in all our variables, right? So client ID, client secret, and callback URL. Callback URL is what happens after you log in. Where do we redirect to, right? So auth slash LinkedIn slash callback. So we'll define a route named exactly this, and then we'll call back on this, right? And then authenticate. As this was a comment, we'll remove that, and we'll define this in the route section. For now, let's remove this. So this is the strategy that we are going to use. So what we are doing is basically in this strategy, we pass all of our parameters. We get back the access token, the refresh token, the profile of our user, and the done. This is the callback of what happens after we get all this right. So what we're doing is just passing on the profile. We don't need the access token, we don't need the refresh token, we only need the user profile. So we are just passing that, right? So this is how simple it is to create an authentication with LinkedIn or any other authentication with passport library. You just use the strategy and you follow the same steps with different authentications, right? So here what we'll do is in the route section, LinkedIn router dot get request, and we'll write auth, sorry, slash LinkedIn. Here we defined auth slash LinkedIn slash callback, right? Here we'll first write auth slash LinkedIn. So in index, we'll first write app dot use, and here we'll directly give auth, right? And then we'll use our route section. So after auth, we'll define in the route section, and here we'll directly import those routes. So the routes are in the dot slash routes folder slash LinkedIn, right? So this should give us all the routes here, right? So this route is basically auth slash LinkedIn, and you might be confused because here I've defined the auth slash LinkedIn callback, but this is after the LinkedIn is done, right? After the LinkedIn has given login information. But before that, we need to first send a request, right? So for sending the request that we want to log in, we also need a route, right? So we are defining that route. So first passport dot authenticate, and so in passport dot authenticate, what we'll do is we'll specify that we want to authenticate for the LinkedIn, and we'll also provide a state. This state is specific to a LinkedIn strategy. Sorry, first we'll write the object, then that define the state, and we'll write like this, and I shouldn't have closed the bracket here. So this is what we use right here. All right. What am I doing right? I think this should be working. When you hit this endpoint on the front end, or in our case, the sign in with LinkedIn button, you'll hit this endpoint and it will redirect to the LinkedIn page, the LinkedIn sign in page, right? And after sign in, you'll have this slash LinkedIn callback. So that's the difference between those two routes. So let's define that as well. Router.get, and we'll write LinkedIn slash callback. And we'll write passport dot authenticate, but in this case, we have already done the login. So here we'll, my bad, LinkedIn first for the LinkedIn strategy, and then we'll write success redirect. So after a successful login, where do you want to redirect? So for now, we'll write maybe a login success. Sorry, auth slash login success, right? You have to pass in the exact URL here. So auth slash login dot success. We'll create a endpoint right here for now. Route.get, router.get, and we'll write, see, auth we already have in the app. So here we'll just write login slash success. Notice the difference, right? Don't make a mistake. Here we have to pass in the exact URL, right? Auth login slash success. But when you're using the router inside that, you can directly skip the auth because we are using that in the app, right? So now what you want to do is, in this request, what we'll get is we'll get a user in the request itself. So you'll get a user header and you'll have all the information of that user in it. So for now, what we'll do is just return the user itself on this route. Okay. And since we have a success redirect, we also need a failure redirect, right? So failure redirect will pass into login. We'll directly pass into slash, and on slash we'll have that login page. All right, that login page that will give the sign in button, right? So that's what we'll do. Let's also create a route for logout, right? What will happen when we get a logout request? So slash logout. So what we'll do is request dot logout. This is a function, and in that we have to pass in the callback, right? So here we have to write basically on logout if there is an error. First we'll check if error, then we'll return return without doing anything. All right, but if we don't have an error, what we'll do is navigate to or response dot redirect to the home page as well. All right, so that's our logout request. This is login success, the login code, right? We are going to be using that. I'll just write what each of the routes are doing. Request of LinkedIn login initialize. So this endpoint initializes the LinkedIn login, and this is the endpoint which redirects after LinkedIn login, right? Depending on whether that login was successful or failed, this redirect is directly written here, right? So here you'll write that redirect, and after that redirect, we'll check whether the login was success or failure. Then we'll have a success route and failure route. We don't have a specific failure route here. Otherwise, you could have created a specific login slash failure as well, but we are not going to do that because I want to keep it as simple as possible. For now, this is what we are going to do, but there are a lot of errors in this, a lot of errors, and I'll show you what those errors are. But first, on home, let's send something, right? We need something for the users to see. I'm copying this UI code directly because we don't want to spend time doing that. This is a code from this article directly. I'll show you guys. Just a big shout out to him as well. He has written a wonderful blog post about LinkedIn authentication, Purshit Shadel. So if you guys have the time, just give a like to his post as well. All right. He has written a wonderful blog about that. I'll link that in the description as well. So now actually let's start our Express and see if the app is. Before that, let's install npm install node1, since we are going to be needing that. Let's do that as a developer dependency. So, all right. It's not recognizing the nodemon command. So let's actually add a script here that's like, let's say start script, and we'll write nodemon index.js. Index.js. It should work either way, but just for the sake of confidence, I guess. Now, if we run npm start, I guess npm start, there we go. Our app is working, and if we go on the local host 8000, I believe, we get this homepage user is not logged in. So this is the UI that I am sending at homepage right now. See, user is not logged in, and this. There is one chain that is required. I directly copied the code, but this on click is sending us to auth/LinkedIn, but we defined our route. This to initialize, we defined our route to be auth/LinkedIn with a small I. So we need to make that change as well. And if you're directly copying my code or you're following along, make sure to change this LinkedIn. Now it should work. We'll see what happens. Not used to working on Mac. It's a big problem. We'll reload this once. When we click on sign in, now unknown authentication strategy LinkedIn. This is an error that you'll often face. I already told you, right? This code has a lot of errors right now. So we'll be dealing with that one by one, and I'm like literally not solving those so that you know what kind of errors you'll face while dealing with this library, right? So we have unknown authentication strategy LinkedIn. So for that error, what you do is first, see, we are defining the strategy, but we are not using this anywhere, right? So how will our app know that we need the strategy, right? So for that, what you need is you need to import this in the index.js or app.js, whatever you're using, right? So strat, you can name it anything. You just need to import it once, right? So require and right dot slash auth slash passport LinkedIn, right? That's it. You need don't need to do anything else. That should work. Let's see. We'll go back. We'll reload once. This site can be reached. Did our all right? Passport is not defined. We are getting a separate error right now. All right, we didn't import passport here. So we'll do just that now that we have it. Another thing is, right, we haven't given client ID and client secret right now. So what we are going to be, what we'll do is, I'll show you guys where you can get it. For example, right here. See, this is my developer portal. This is the developer zone. And in that we have our client ID right here in the auth. If you go, you'll see the client secret, right? I've already told you that at the starting of the video, but right now there are a lot of things that I've already done where I was testing this. But for now, what you have to do is first in the domain section, allow the local host or the website that you are using, right? So allow local host. And in this case, I'll also write 8000 because we are at the port 8000. So these are the domains that are allowed. Other than that, here will also, these are the routes that we are redirecting it to, right? Auth LinkedIn callback. And initially we are also sending a request to auth LinkedIn. The only difference is the port is 8000. So that's what we are going to change first. So with this, our developer portal on LinkedIn is set up, fully functional, right? And these two variables are something that you will have to write in your file, right? For now, what I'll do is I'll write process.env.linkedin key. In your app, you don't need to show this to others. So for that, you'll be saving it in a env. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we'll define two variables in the env file, LinkedIn key and LinkedIn secret. I'll just create a new file .env, LinkedIn key and LinkedIn secret. So LinkedIn key and LinkedIn secret. But one more error is we can't access process.env file directly. For that, what you need is a new library. So we'll first stop our app and install .env file, .env package. We need that to access the process.env file, right? So for that, what we'll do is require .env and .config. This will allow us to access those environment variables. Now that we have our access, I'll just put my variables, put my initials in those. Otherwise, I'll be seeing quite an obvious error, I guess. So yeah, now that we have that set up, let's see what kind of error we'll face next. Actually, no, we are running npm start, right? Npm start. Another error. Yes, this is a very interesting error. Auth LinkedIn requires a client ID option. Why is it giving that error even though I have specified to use that LinkedIn key? So this is an error you might face in other situations as well. The sequence in which you call these imports also matters for that. So now I'm calling that passport LinkedIn before I'm defining this config, right? So that is what is throwing this error. If I move this above that, let's see. Now it started once, but I think we got another error. No, it's working perfectly fine. See, listing at port 8000. So now we are at this page. When we click this, let's see what happens. All right, login sessions require a session support. This is also an error you will face if you don't use Express session middleware. So now that we know what to do, we'll just go on. So that's why I'm deliberately making these errors. Otherwise, I could have shown you the entire code, right? Now, what we'll do is, since we need the Express session middleware, we first need to install Express session package, and here we'll also need to import it, right? So we'll write session, and in that and require we'll use express.session. So there we go. Now we have the session variable, and to define that. So to use that middleware now, what we'll do is app.use is used whenever you are defining a middleware. Now we want to create a session, and for a session you have to pass a secret. So it can be anything, a session secret it's called. So now we are using the session. Okay, my bad. Right. So we have created a session. Now let's see whether the error is gone or not. First, we'll initialize our app. Then npm start. All right. See this express session deprecated. This is basically means that our express session is running, although we haven't defined it. Okay. Hopefully it works. Let's see. Fail to serialize user into session. Now, this error is when you don't serialize your user. That means initializing passport, right? There are few things that I'll directly show you guys what you have to do. In the strategy, you can directly copy paste it here, or actually let's define this. So defining a user is basically here. What we'll do is I'll paste this. So by serializing a user, what we have to do is if we are logging or signing in, you create a session, right? And for creating the session, you need to serialize the user. And when the session is over, you need to deserialize the user. So these are the two variables that the objects that you need to create. So for that, we have serialized user and deserialized user, and we are not doing anything. We're just passing the user variable directly. We're not doing anything uh, extraordinary on this. Just we need these to have the session working properly, right? We need to serialize the user, and of course, like deserialize it as well after the session is over. That's how it works. You need to have a proper structure. So let's see if that error is gone now. So this is our local host. Let's see what happens. So why you are facing So this is an error that you can also create, right? This is this is not exactly an error. What we have missed is basically to initialize the passport library. We need to initialize that as well. So for that, what we'll do is simply you need to initialize the passport library and create a session as well. So for that, what we'll do is just add these two lines. App.use passport.initialize and passport.session. Now, yeah, we need to import the library as well. So we'll do that at the top, as I told you. The sequence matters, right? Passport require, and then we'll write passport. So that's it. We have this library. Yeah, that working. Let's see if we have another success or failure. 8,000 here. If you click it on the, we are facing an error which is user is not defined. Let's see why are we facing that error. You're facing that in the LinkedIn route section, so we'll check it once. Router.get users. Okay, there we see our error request.user. That's what we were supposed to do. And now if we reload, I think that should work. But before that, let's head on to the homepage first. Now, sign in with LinkedIn. See, now it's showing this screen. That means we did something right. So I'll just enter my password, sign in, and let's see what we get. See, this is all the user information that our LinkedIn is returning us, right? So this is all the information, but we don't need everything because most of it is repeated. See here, Yagesh Bobde, again Yagesh Bobde, and other than that, the photos we have same 4 photos, except for the fact that one is 400 by 400, other is 200 by 200, 100 by 100. I'll just open it up and show you guys. This is my LinkedIn profile photo, so that's one. And 2 by 200, you'll see the dimension is the only difference. So for that, here we need to extract only the important things. For example, if you need the first name and this last name separately, you will try to extract this name object, right? And if you only need the whole name, you can just extract the display name directly, right? Other than that, in photos, you only need one of these. So just extract one of these values which you require. Other than that, we also need the email, right? So let's see where the email object is. So in emails, we see only one object is there, and in that we have one the value, right? So now we know in the user what exactly we want, right? Now we can extract it, and for that extraction I already have a code from the article that I showed you by Pushad Sadel. I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, bro. Go on to our code, and in login success, instead of sending this whole thing, I just wanted to show you that that's what we get. Return res.send. That's what we'll do. Okay, actually, I copied that as well. So we'll just write this res.send. What we are sending is basically the name, the email, the photo, right? We're displaying the photo. And for that, we also need these variables. So in the request.user, as I said, in the name object, we had given name and the family name, both of them. Instead of this, you can also directly extract that display name that I told you about. In photos, we only extracted the first value, and in that, the value property had our URL, right? So this is something that I explained in the object directly. Let's see our working of the site. How exactly is it working? This local host and 8,000. Let's go there and see. Sign in with LinkedIn. There we go. So user is logged in, name Yagesh Bobde, LinkedIn email, and my photo is also shown. So everything works perfectly fine. One other thing that we can add here is the logout option, but I think you get the whole idea of how it works. Here we can just add another thing, right? Button, and so we'll write on click, we'll write window dot location will provided the logout option, right? So this route that we defined, auth dot logout. I remember to put auth as well. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Actually, since it's a window dot location, we might want to use the entire address. Localhost and 8,000 slash auth slash logout. And there we go. I think that is correct. Actually, I forgot the location. So on click, this should happen now. I just implied that. I don't know if it works or not, but let's see. Actually, let's just go back and log in again. Sign in with user, sign in with LinkedIn. We have it. We have a log button. Let's see if it works. There we go. It successfully works. Right. So this is basically the LinkedIn functioning that we wanted to learn. Other than that, I already told you the passport library offers you a lot of options. Again, if we go to the page, I'll just share the website link in the description. See Facebook, Google Auth, OpenID client, normal email password. Total they have 538 strategies. This is a must learn tool because authentication is something that you have to put on your website because that gives you a verification that your creator is verified. They're verified by Google, they're verified by Facebook. So such big tech companies, they are a verified user. So that's a very big that's a very plus point for you to have a user verified user, right? That reduces the chance of them spamming, right? I really believe that is a library that you must use at least once. And if you're using authentication, then this is a must go library, right? So I think we're done, and I covered all the errors that I think I could create, and I created them one by one. So that should solve a lot of errors for you. But remember this one thing: many times the sequence in which you do things gives you different kinds of error. For example, if I initialize, so I think the site is working wonderfully. You can add this LinkedIn button anywhere, anytime, and I already told you how everything works, right? So a big shout out to Prashant Chadel for his article. It was very easy to understand. It was like it had everything required for this particular video and topic in general. So yeah, just give a clap to this guy as well. So guys, I think that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys next time.